The storm outside Camp Ares rattled the old steel panels like distant artillery. Rain streaked across the windows, catching the training lights in broken flashes of white and gold. Inside the academy's main hall, 20 cadets stood in formation, their breath fogging slightly in the chilled air. The scent of disinfectant and damp metal mixed with something else, musk, primal and wild, that didn't belong in a human academy. The Predator Cubs were back. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at the front, his posture straight as a rifle barrel. The tall instructor's voice carried across the room with the weight of command. "Today," he said, "we continue joint integration drills. Remember, these creatures are not pets. They are partners, bred for combat, and they will sense fear faster than a heartbeat." Every cadet's eyes flicked toward the line of cages on the far wall. Inside each was a cub, not quite adult, not quite tame. Their sleek coats shimmered under the fluorescence, a strange blend of feline grace and reptilian menace. They were products of Project Helix, gene-forged hybrids designed for search, rescue, and war. The military called them predators, though the scientists who created them preferred companions. Most humans didn't care for the distinction. Hale pressed a button on his wrist display, and the cages slid open with a hiss. The cadets stiffened. Metal restraints clinked as the cubs padded out one by one, tails twitching, eyes gleaming with predatory curiosity. Each was assigned to a handler, a cadet expected to earn its trust through exposure and controlled interaction. When the last cage opened, the room fell silent. A silver-striped cub, the biggest of the pack, stalked forward. Its eyes burned a cold amber that seemed almost intelligent. The nameplate on its collar read Rex 9. Rex belonged to Cadet Ethan Cross. Ethan was 20, lean and quiet, the kind of soldier who didn't speak unless spoken to. He stood a step apart from the others, calm, unreadable. His hands were steady as he lowered himself to one knee, extending his palm in a slow, non-threatening gesture. He'd studied the cubs' body language for weeks. He knew how they tested dominance, how they sought hierarchy, even in play. Rex patted closer, muscles rippling under its hide. The other cadets tensed. Hale watched in silence. Ethan smiled slightly. "Hey there, big guy," he murmured. "You remember me, right?" The cub's nostrils flared. Then, in one fluid motion, it opened its mouth and growled. The sound shook the floor. It wasn't a warning growl, not exactly. It was low and resonant, the kind predators used when playing rough among their own kind. But to human ears, it was thunder, primal and threatening. Every cadet froze. Even Hale's expression hardened. "Cross, don't move," he ordered quietly. The cub crouched, pupils narrowing to slits. Its tail whipped once, twice. Then Rex lunged, not in attack, but in a burst of testing energy, claws scraping the floor inches from Ethan's boots. Gasps echoed through the hall. A few cadets stumbled backward. Ethan didn't move. His pulse raced, but his mind stayed razor-sharp. He remembered Hale's lessons: predators don't respect weakness. They don't understand fear. Instead of retreating, Ethan inhaled deeply, squared his shoulders, and growled back. It wasn't a perfect imitation. His throat caught, his voice human, but it carried the same rhythm, deep, rolling, defiant. The sound cut through the air, startling everyone in the room. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Rex blinked. The cub tilted its head, confused. Its ears flicked once, and then it made a sound that none of the cadets had ever heard, a soft chuff, almost amused. The tension broke like glass. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's right," he said quietly. "We play my way." Rex huffed again, stepped forward, and gently nudged his shoulder with its muzzle, a gesture of acceptance. The hall erupted with whispered awe. Hale's mouth twitched, almost into a smile. "Cadet Cross," he said, his voice carrying again, "I'll be damned. You just made friends with a war beast." Ethan stood, scratching the cub behind the ear. "He started it, sir." The other cadets laughed nervously, but beneath the humor was something deeper: respect and a trace of unease. Because what they had just seen wasn't normal. Rex wasn't supposed to submit this easily. The predators bonded through struggle, not kindness. Yet the bond was forming, clear as daylight. Hale dismissed the formation, still studying Ethan with the wary curiosity of a man who'd just witnessed something important. "Cross, stay behind," he ordered. "I need to talk to you." As the others filed out, Rex sat by Ethan's leg, silent and watchful. When the hall emptied, Hale crossed his arms. "That was dangerous," he said. "You were one wrong move from losing your arm." Ethan met his gaze. "With respect, sir, if I showed fear, I'd have lost more than that." Hale's expression softened slightly. "You're not wrong. Still, these animals aren't like anything we've trained before. They're not supposed to trust easily." He glanced at Rex, who was now calmly licking its paw. "Something about that one's different, and something about you too." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe we just understand each other." Hale grunted. "Maybe. Or maybe that thing sees something in you that I don't." He paused, voice lowering. "Either way, you just became the most interesting cadet in this academy. Don't make me regret that." Outside, lightning split the clouds, throwing a sharp flash through the windows. Rex flinched but didn't move away from Ethan's side. The bond, fragile as glass, had begun to harden into something more. Neither human nor predator knew it yet, but this connection, forged in growls and defiance, would soon be tested in ways none of them were prepared for. Because somewhere deep within the predator program, something had gone very, very wrong. Night draped itself over camp areas like a velvet shroud, thick and silent except for the occasional drip of rain sliding down the steel roof. Most of the cadets had retreated to their bunks, exhausted from the day's drills, the growls of predator cubs still echoing faintly in their minds. But Ethan Cross didn't sleep. He sat cross-legged on the edge of his bed, Rex 9 curled at his feet. The cub's amber eyes gleamed in the dim emergency lights, almost unnervingly intelligent. Ethan ran a hand along the predator's back, feeling the vibration of its purr-like hum, a sound that was both comforting and alarming. The bond between them had grown stronger in hours than many cadets achieved in weeks, and yet Ethan sensed something restless in Rex. Something that didn't belong to normal play or training. "Rex," Ethan whispered, voice low so as not to wake the others, "what is it?" "You're on edge." The cub lifted its head, sniffed the air, and let out a low growl. Not playful this time. The sound was closer to a warning, a signal that something outside their immediate control was approaching. Ethan stiffened. Before he could react, the lights in the hallway flickered violently, plunging parts of the dormitory into shadow. Rex's ears flattened, his tail lashed. The quiet metallic clink of cages echoed from the far wing, the predator holding pens. A sound no one should have heard at this hour. "Not again," Ethan muttered. He pushed to his feet, the floor vibrating slightly beneath him as Rex moved to follow, muscles taut. He wasn't alone. From the shadows of the hall, a faint shuffling grew louder, accompanied by low, guttural growls, deep, inhuman, and unmistakably dangerous. Ethan froze, heart hammering. The cadets had been warned, these hybrids were contained at all times, except during supervised drills. But the sound told him the cages were open. Rex growled again, a low warning, his body poised between attack and flight. Then Ethan did something impulsive, something reckless, he growled back. The sound carried through the hall, raw and human, and it was enough. Rex lunged forward, leading Ethan down the corridor with unnatural speed. Shadows moved ahead, flickers of silver and black, teeth glinting in the emergency lights. The cubs had broken free. Panic flared, not just in Ethan, but in the entire dormitory. Doors slammed open. Cadets stumbled into the hall, faces pale and eyes wide. "What the hell?" muttered Cadet Lisa Moreno, gripping the side of the wall as Rex and Ethan barreled past. "Why aren't the alarms?" "They're down." Ethan shouted back, adrenaline sharpening his senses. "The cubs, something triggered the releases." Hale's voice boomed from somewhere deeper in the dorms. "All cadets, return to your quarters. Contain the predators." Ethan barely registered the orders. His focus was entirely on Rex and the other cubs ahead, their movements coordinated in an eerie, preternatural way. Each predator moved with precision, weaving around obstacles, their instincts guiding them like a dark wave through the hall. The cadets who tried to intercept them froze, paralyzed by the sight of these creatures moving like shadows with intent. Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped into the hall, growling again, loud and sharp. Rex skidded to a stop beside him, ears flicking. The cubs halted too, circling back to sniff, assess, and recognize, as if confirming who was the leader, who understood their nature. It was a delicate moment, a fragile understanding in a storm of chaos. The other cadets stared, their fear palpable. Ethan knew that if he showed hesitation now, these hybrids could easily overwhelm anyone in their path. But he didn't feel fear, not exactly. Only the raw surge of connection he'd built with Rex in the day's drills. "Rex, calm them," Ethan hissed. He bent low, placing a hand on the cub's side. The predator's purr rolled through him, steadying and solidifying his courage. Together, they became the eye of the storm, the calm center in a hall full of wild energy. One of the cubs, smaller than Rex and faster, darted toward a group of cadets who were too frozen to react. Its claws scraped the floor, and the cadets flinched. But Ethan acted instinctively. He growled low, commanding, sharp, and the predator paused, ears twitching, before circling back toward Rex. "Good," Ethan murmured. "Follow the leader." Minutes passed like hours. The cubs eventually fell into formation around him, strange, loyal, and fierce. The other cadets watched in awe as Ethan led the pack through the dormitory hallways, corralling them away from human traffic and potential harm. Then came the sound that made Ethan's stomach turn, a heavy metallic crash from the lab wing. A sound of containment failure. Hale's voice cut through the tension. "Cross. You and your companion get to the lab. Secure it before the predators get in there." Ethan hesitated. The lab was off limits, a place filled with experimental tech and dangerous hybrid samples. One wrong step and the situation could escalate catastrophically. But he couldn't back down. Not now. Not with Rex at his side. Together, human and cub moved with near telepathic coordination, dodging falling debris, sliding past doors swung open by the storm, and guiding the other cubs with a mixture of commands, growls, and unspoken authority. The lab door loomed ahead. Through the narrow window, Ethan could see chaos, hybrid research pods overturned, sparks flying from damaged circuits, and the faint glow of biosamples drifting in the humid air. One cub had already jumped inside, testing the boundaries. Ethan swallowed. He could feel Rex tense beside him, muscles rippling. He reached for the door handle, and then he did the only thing he could think of. He growled. Again. Loud, commanding, human, primal. The sound carried inside the lab, shaking the smaller cub, halting its advance, and causing the others to freeze at the doorway. Then Ethan smiled, low and sharp, a flash of amusement in the middle of terror. "Back," he said. His tone carried authority, not like a drill instructor, but like a predator himself, standing among equals. Rex nudged him forward, and together they entered the lab. The cubs inside immediately recognized the unspoken hierarchy and retreated into corners, tense but obedient. Ethan's presence and his growl had turned chaos into control. Hale arrived moments later, breathless, eyes scanning the scene. "Cross. I don't know what you did, but you just prevented a disaster," he said. "How did you?" Ethan shrugged, brushing sweat and rain from his hair. "I didn't do it alone. Rex did most of the work." The cub purred, brushing against Ethan's leg, and Hale stared, half in disbelief, half in awe. You growled them into submission?" Ethan nodded. "They respond to strength and confidence. Not fear. Not panic. Just command." Hale shook his head. "I've trained soldiers for 20 years. Never seen anything like this. You and that cub, you're something else." Outside, the storm raged, but inside the lab, for a fleeting moment, order had returned. But Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The predator cubs had tested limits tonight, limits that were supposed to remain absolute. And somewhere in the chaos, the true danger of Project Helix was waiting, a danger far beyond his and Rex's understanding. As he looked at the cubs, calm now but eyes still bright with feral intelligence, Ethan felt a shiver of anticipation. This bond, once playful, once a test, had transformed into a partnership forged under fire. And when the real challenge came, he realized it would demand everything he had, and more. Dawn broke over Camp Aries with an eerie quiet, as if the storm had cleansed the night but left the air charged with tension. The cadets were exhausted, eyes rimmed with fatigue, minds still reeling from the previous night's chaos. Every corner of the academy seemed sharper, every shadow longer, as if the building itself remembered the predator's escape and was holding its breath in anticipation of what could come next. Ethan Cross sat in the training hall, Rex 9 at his side, both of them motionless. Outside the large windows, the first rays of sun cut through mist, highlighting the damp metallic floor and the faint footprints left by the cubs' nighttime frenzy. Hale's voice had been firm the night before, the predators were contained, for now. But Ethan knew it was only temporary. Something had triggered the cages, a flaw in the system, a human error, or worse, an intelligence within the cubs themselves. He ran a hand along Rex's back, feeling the rippling muscle beneath the fur. The cub's amber eyes met his, patient and watchful, as if silently asking, "Are you ready?" Ethan nodded. "Ready as I'll ever be," he whispered. The first sign of trouble came just as morning drills began. The intercom crackled to life, but this time it wasn't Hale's voice. It was an alarm, a sharp, piercing signal that set every cadet on edge. Then came the growls. Not the controlled, playful growls of Rex and his companions, but deep, chaotic, and full of intent. The cubs had coordinated. Somehow, they had tested the boundaries and discovered a weakness, a vulnerability in the containment protocols no human had anticipated. And now, with precision that was terrifyingly intelligent, they were moving again. Ethan's stomach tightened. He turned to Rex. "We need to stop them. Now." Rex growled low and deep, tail flicking. Then, without hesitation, he bolted into the hall, and Ethan followed. The other cadets tried to intercept, but fear froze them in place. The predators weren't attacking anyone, not yet. They were hunting chaos itself, testing, asserting dominance in a way that was both fascinating and horrifying. In the center of the hall, a cub cornered Cadet Jake Thompson, a rookie who had frozen behind a support beam. Jake's hands shook as the small predator circled him, amber eyes glowing. Ethan sprinted forward, growling, not a call for help, but a command. The cub paused, ears twitching. Ethan's chest rose and fell with controlled intensity, his gaze locked on the predator. Then he smiled, a sharp, confident curve of teeth. "Back. Now." The cub hesitated for a heartbeat, then backed down, slipping past Jake and retreating to Rex's side. The other cubs, sensing their leader's authority, followed suit. The hall's tension shifted from terror to uneasy awe. Hale appeared at the far end of the hall, breathless. "Cross. You've got to get them under control before," his words cut off as the cubs darted past, slipping through side doors, their speed unmatched. "Damn it!" Hale barked, gripping the wall for support. "They're heading for the lab." Ethan's pulse surged. The lab contained experimental compounds, volatile, dangerous, and now completely at risk. "Rex, come on," he said, voice low but commanding. Together, they sprinted through corridors, dodging overturned equipment and scattered cadets. By the time they reached the lab, the cubs were already inside, prowling among overturned tables, shattered containment pods, and sparking machinery. Rex padded to Ethan's side, ears forward, ready. Ethan's heart pounded. He could feel the electricity in the room, a palpable warning that any wrong move could ignite chaos. "Stay with me," he murmured. "We do this together." The cubs reacted immediately to his presence. Ethan growled, low, commanding, human yet primal. It was a sound that vibrated through the lab, a sound that demanded attention. The cubs froze, glancing between Ethan and Rex, assessing their human partner's intent. Then Ethan moved. With precise, deliberate steps, he guided the cubs back toward the containment area, speaking in the low tones and growls he had perfected over the past days. Each predator hesitated, tested him, then submitted, not in fear, but in respect. By the time Hale and the other cadets arrived, they found the lab intact, the cubs calm and obedient, clustered around Ethan and Rex as if nothing had happened. Hale's face was pale, eyes wide. Cross. I don't understand. How? Ethan shrugged, brushing a bead of sweat from his brow. We listened. And we responded. Not with fear, not with force, but with understanding. Hale exhaled slowly, nodding. You formed something incredible. Dangerous, yes, but incredible. He looked down at the cubs clustered around Ethan, tails flicking, ears attentive. This bond, it could change everything about Project Helix. Ethan crouched, resting a hand on Rex's head. The cub leaned into him, purring, a sound that was at once comforting and feral. It's not just Rex, he said softly. It's all of them. They need to trust us, and we need to trust them. Otherwise, none of this works. Outside the lab, the sun broke fully through the storm clouds, scattering light across the academy. The air smelled of ozone and wet metal. The cadets, previously frozen with fear, now watched in silent awe. There was a new respect in their eyes, not just for the predators, but for the human who had stood unflinchingly in the middle of raw, primal power intended with nothing more than courage, presence, and a shared growl. Hale placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. You've proven something tonight, Cadet Cross. Something no manual, no training drill, no instructor could ever teach. Remember this. Remember how power isn't just about dominance, it's about connection, understanding, and trust. Ethan looked down at Rex, amber eyes meeting his. The cub's purr was steady, calm. A silent promise passed between them, a promise forged in chaos, tested in fear, and sealed in the night storm. Let's make sure the next storm doesn't catch anyone off guard, Ethan said. Rex nudged him gently, tail brushing his leg. Together, they walked back into the light of the academy, a team forged in growls, courage, and unspoken understanding. The cadets followed, silent but inspired, and even Hale allowed a small, rare smile. Somewhere in the chaos of Project Helix, something beautiful had been born, a bond that transcended species, instinct, and fear, a bond that would define the future of both human and predator alike. And as the sun rose over Camp Ares, Ethan knew, with unshakable certainty, that neither he nor Rex would ever be the same. The predators had tested him, challenged him, even frightened him. But in the end, it was their respect earned, mutual, and unbreakable, that left the lasting mark. The academy would never forget the night the predator cubs growled, and the human growled back.